Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Halal Gap. My name is Sophia and I'm here with Hamada, and we are joined by an award-winning Canadian-Somali spoken word poet raised right here in Edmonton. She was a semi-finalist at the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word in 2016 while also juggling a full-time university student life. Please welcome Timiro Mohamed.
Hi.
Welcome. Okay, so Timiro, you are a poet. You want to talk about kind of how you got into poetry?
Yeah, sure. So I have been writing my whole life, always been a nerd, fun. But I started to perform spoken word like 2015, my last year of high school. And I've just been performing ever since.
Was there like a particular thing that was happening in high school where you're like, the world needs to know my thoughts right now?
Or were you just an angsty teen?
Yes,
just like
that too. Very much so. I don't know, it was just like, I went from just binge watching button poetry to just feeling like, why don't I actually go and share all the things that I have? Mm-hmm. And then the first show that I did, like when I was older, was there was like this thing that these U of A women and gender studies students were organizing, and they had a call for submissions. So I was like, I don't know, I'm writing feminist things, I'll just apply, I'll see what happens. And then I went, performed, and then from there it was just like that whole like summer, it was just like a domino effect. So I went, I did that show, and then there's this thing at the, like, there's this place called Wellington in the north side, and that was like the hub where every Somali in the north side grew up. Like it was like a center where we all had access to these things. So there was this event called Somali's Got Talent.
Awesome.
And very fun, very fun. I performed at that. One of the judges was Ahmed Nomadic, who was our, you know Ahmed, yes?
Yeah.
Yes, we know him. He's famous.
Yeah, but the audience might not, so feel free to, to tell everybody.
Let me tell you about Ahmed.
Yeah.
So if you don't know, now you know. He was our city's poet laureate. He is one of the co-founders of the Breath and Poetry Collective. So he continues to just like create space for poetry and art in our community. So he was one of the judges that year, and I performed. I think it went well. I was like, yes, this is great, love this. And he ended up giving me my first paid show as a result of that, and that was the Kaleido Fest. And so then from there, when I realized I could actually make money for just sharing my diary pages, I was like, what is happening? And then it just continued from there to take off.
That's awesome. So, you were like listening to other poets you said on like button poetry and stuff. Did you get a lot of inspiration from other poets?
Definitely.
In what ways?
Great question. I think there's just like so many poets that I look up to. One of the first poets was Wadasan Shire. Mm-hmm. She is, right, yes, love Wadasan. She's also a Somali woman. And a lot of her poetry was just things that like spoke to me that I connected with. I was like, are you writing this for me or what is happening? And just seeing that representation, seeing people who looked like me doing like something that really I connected with on so many levels and that I felt I could do was inspiring and just, I guess, pushed me to actually go and do it.
That's awesome. I don't know if everybody knows this, but her poetry was in Beyonce's Lemonade.
Oh yeah.
Like,
yes.
This person has like made it.
Yeah. No, like that her Lemonade. Words, it was a lot to handle. Right. My love for Beyonce, my love for West Side. It was like, okay, I can't. My heart is
too much happening right now.
Could not handle it. So yeah, love West Side.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's very, very cool.
So I know that you've got your book, which you wrote with your teammates from the Canadian Festival Spoken Word. It's called Water. Mm-hmm. So what can we expect? What's in the book?
So Water was, that was published, I think it was 2017. I should know this. Feels like a long time ago. So that came as a result of the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word, which is this competition, which is like team slam poetry. So it was 5 of us on the team, and in preparation for that festival, we wrote a number of group pieces. So we just spent like hours together the whole summer of 2016 writing poems together. And the 4 of us on that team were all women of color. 2 of us were Muslim women. So we just had a lot of shared experiences, and it was really easy to write poems together because our words just like overlapped and flowed together so easily. So I remember one of my teammates thought that we would just sit around her kitchen table and talk about Like, what are things that we want to write about? What are poems that we want to see? That was one of the first meetings we had that summer. And we talked about all these different ideas. We talked about writing a poem about hijab, a poem about colorism, and like over the course of the summer, all of these things came to be, and we got to share them on that stage at CFSW. And then after that festival, it was like, okay, well, I mean, yes, we were a team for this time, but we're kind of going to go our separate ways. And it would be really nice if we could, like, I guess, pay tribute to these pieces and collect them and publish them. And the way it happened was really weird because Nisha, another teammate of mine, has a friend who founded Glass Buffalo magazine, with the U of A. Mm-hmm. And so, she was able to talk to him, and he made that idea a reality. And so we were able to publish a chapbook, and it was just a way for us to collect and, pay tribute to those pieces. So majority of it is group pieces, and then we each have our own individual pieces that we kind of put in there as well.
You have a favorite piece in there?
Do I? I don't even know. Oh my goodness.
It's allowed to be one of yours.
I can brag. No. Yeah. I feel like just a little plug. There's this one poem that we wrote about the idea of home, and we don't really get to perform that much anymore because we're all just doing our own thing.
Are you all from Edmonton?
We are.
Okay.
Sada's kind of like global. She's doing big things, so it's hard to find time and space to do it as a group, but I think that's probably my favorite piece of the book.
So like this book was based off of like your shared as well as individual experiences as a team.
Definitely.
Of artists who like this is how you share with the world. So what is like the message that you want to convey through that? Or like what was there like a theme? Was it like the theme of home? Or like what was the
it was like I think all of the pieces kind of fit together, but when we were writing them, like when we had that first meeting to brainstorm what we wanted to write about, which eventually led to this book, there wasn't like a common thread in the pieces that we wrote, but then it ended up fitting together really well because all of it came from the experiences of being women of color, and what that looks like dealing with oppression, racism, Islamophobia, all of the things, and the intersections of our identities. So I guess, it was just genuine lived experience that was poured into it, and then it ended up fitting together into this one like common story.
That's very cool. So where can people buy this book?
So you can look online. The Glass Buffalo website has chapbooks. There's also a lot of other books from local artists that you should check out and support. But online at Glass Buffalo's website.
Awesome. And it's called Water. Again,
Water. Super simple. Yes.
All right, so you're also a student.
Yes.
Apparently. You want to talk about what it's like to balance kind of like student life and then trying to find opportunities to write and perform and all that?
Honestly, I feel like I don't balance it. I feel like I have not found the balance yet. It's like
ever find balance,
right? Like it's so hard. Honestly, school it's more than a full-time job. It's like it's a child that I'm raising.
Yeah.
This little baby.
Right? Why? And then it's like, why do you need me all the time? So I'm in school full-time, trying to get my degree, trying to make my parents proud. Yes, Hoya, I'm going to school. And just like finding the balance between not only like finding the time, but also the energy, because it's really draining to constantly like be writing tests and all these things. It's really hard. And I feel like a lot of the time, like something that I'm aware that I need to work on is I don't feel that I put enough time into this thing that I love. I treat it like a hobby, even though it's my passion. I don't pour enough into it or honor it enough because I'm either working or I'm in school and I'm like doing these things that you need to do to survive and remain, like being able to continue to live. But I don't know that I found the balance yet. I'm working towards it, and I'm just trying my best to be intentional about consistently taking time to, write, pour myself into it, and take on projects that normally I wouldn't, or take on opportunities that normally I wouldn't because I feel like I don't have the time, and just finding it somewhere. Like if sleep doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's okay. Yeah. So.
On the list of priorities.
Right? Sleep is not there. It's not there.
Not even top 10.
No.
So, because of that, because you're trying to be more intentional, or just generally in the writing process, like I imagine that these words are like so raw and real with emotion. does that get like, is that hard to do? Like, do you need to kind of be in the right mind space or even like physical space to like write your poetry?
Definitely. And also it's like, because everything is so honest and vulnerable, it's hard to, I think there's some stories that maybe I'm not ready to tell or don't need to tell right now. So just like finding the balance between finding energy to write, but then also having the wisdom, I guess, to know when things don't need to be shared or when it's not ready to be completed. So sometimes there's pieces where I'll come back to them like after 2 years and I'll just find it in my archives and I'll be like, oh my goodness, this is great. I wrote this? What? And then, right? Yeah. And then because I took that time, I can come back to it and I can complete it. And it could be a piece. But yeah, sometimes things don't need to be shared. Things don't need to be written about. But just like knowing when you can take a break for yourself.
So is this like finding that out, like figuring that out about yourself? Because I feel like that's like that's a lot of wisdom to have about yourself, to be like, yeah, like this is something I can and should explore right now, or this is something I shouldn't. So like, do you find like the writing is like a therapy?
Definitely very healing. But then the hope is also that it's healing for other people. So even if something was like a difficult experience that I really wanted to write about, maybe I'm not in a place where I'm ready to share that, because the goal is not to traumatize myself or to traumatize others.
That's fair. Yeah.
The goal is to heal.
Yeah.
So just being responsible about the stories that I'm telling, how I'm telling them, the position I'm telling them from, because again, like everything comes from, my experience as someone who's Black and Muslim and the child of immigrants. But if it's not, first-hand account, or if I'm writing about this idea of home, but I'm not actually a first-generation immigrant, just understanding my position in that story, and it just being accountable with, like, am I allowed to be telling this right now? Is it my place to tell this story? And all of that.
So woke. I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, it definitely is my place to tell this story.
It's
and
not,
like,
sis.
No, shut up. So that's awesome that you like honored the stories and the people who are listening to them in that way.
Thank you.
Because I remember, like, going back to when you said, like, with
Warsan Shire, yeah.
Because I'm like, Worcestershire. Sorry.
The first time I heard that pronunciation, I was like, what? I was startled. I was like, what's happening?
I mean, apparently this is the show where we learn how to say people's names.
But we're trying.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Yeah. So like, so I'm sorry. Worcestershire.
Yeah, but you're trying. That's what matters.
Yeah.
We're working.
So, because you said, like, people that look like you and, like, are saying things that are so relatable. And I feel like when I was in school and you're like in English class, like you're in Canada and you're learning about poetry, you're never hearing poetry by people of color.
No.
Like,
you're
never.
always learning about like the poets from the 1800s who were like white.
I can still, like, Robert Frost, The Road Less Traveled. Like,
Yeah.
Why do I have that
garbage poem, to be honest with you. Like, there are people
That's
who
a hot
said
take.
what he said.
That is a hot take.
My hot take. There are people who have said that, like what he said, much better and in a much less pretentious way. Sorry, Robert. I don't know if you're still around, but like, I think that there's definitely something to be said for like that diversity in the art of poetry. And so, like, do you have a hot take?
I'll take all that. First of all, I second that opinion, like 100%. Yes. Trash. Why are we learning about him?
Right. I mean, like, it's not on him, but like, he's part of the problem, and he's the one name we all remember.
Yeah. I know. It's like burned into our brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, growing up, I did not know about this huge art. I mean, I knew about the Edmonton art community, but it wasn't like, I didn't learn about these poets that have held it down. Like, I didn't read about Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni. I read about Robert Frost and Edward Allan Poe. So yeah, there's like a lack of diversity. It's whitewashed, especially in English classes. And I think that, like, as someone growing up, I would have to go and do the work to find the niches that I would fit into, and it wasn't available on a mainstream level, which is frustrating. But yeah.
Sucks, man.
It just all sucks.
Change the English curriculum, please.
Yeah, for the teachers out there, who should they be teaching about?
Ooh, big question. I don't know. Like, that's like the fate of the youth are in my hands.
No big deal. Tiny bit of power.
Just a little bit. I can tell you what the people that I look up to or that I love, that I read. I love Dana Smith, Hanif Abdurrafiq, Orson Shida again, one more time, Ariana Brown, just like all of these amazing poets. But I don't think it's hard to find, you know, people of color, poets from communities that have stories that are important, that need to be told. And those shouldn't just be told in Black History Month or like around, or like whatever holidays happening. Can be a 24/7, 365 thing. But it isn't hard to just go out and educate yourself. Like Google is free, so.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that is truth. That is gospel.
So given that you've got the youth power in your hands, because,
Right, great.
you know, just generally, what advice do you have for young poets of color who are like wanting to get into the scene or like wanting to explore further? Or because I think as a person of color, you're not really encouraged to like pursue your artistic side a lot.
No.
So like, you know, it's a lot of like be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, and then like, you know.
Yeah. Like get a real degree, like find a real career. Yeah, don't pursue art.
Yeah.
Honestly, there are a lot of spaces to go and share your work. So like, please, like, feel free to go and do that. But more than anything, it's like just feel motivated to continue to write, even if it's just for yourself, even if it's like on a personal basis. Just continue to find the time and the space to create your art, because I think if you're a creative person and if you're called to do that, like there's something exhausting about not doing it or like stifling that. So just continue to I guess create what you're creating, and then from there do your best to share it. I think that it is hard to make money off of art and to make it a full-time career, full-time job, but I think you shouldn't be afraid to put work into that dream. And I'm saying this and I'm like, am I living by this advice? Am I not? I don't know. But yeah, just like not letting fear hold you back, or not being hypercritical of yourself, or not letting thoughts of inadequacy hold you back, and just doing your best to just create the things that you love, and then when you're ready to share them.
I love that. And I love the idea that like as an artist, like your soul, your spirit is like called to do it. So have you felt like there have been times where you've like stifled it for whatever otherworldly reason, like you need to focus on school or work, and then how has that affected you?
All of the time. It's like this a 24/7 thing of trying to find that balance of finding the time to create it, and then also doing the things that you need to do, the responsibilities. But I think like writing is not something that I ever stop doing. I'm writing all the time, even if I'm not sharing, even if they're not complete pieces, I'm always writing, regardless, even if I don't have the time to be writing. But it's more about then taking that and channeling it into work that I can share, work that can be published, work that can be like complete work. That's more so where I need to bridge the gap. Yeah. But the part where about like being inspired to write and writing, we have that unlocked. That's fine. Yeah. We just need to complete the arc and like actually complete the pieces.
So how long does it vary? Like how long does it take you to write a piece?
Definitely varies. It could be a month. It could be a week. I could do it in a couple of hours. It just depends. Yeah.
Do you what was the first thing you wrote? Like topic, you don't have to share the whole thing.
So the first poem I ever performed actually was at Mosquers. I told him about it this other day.
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Like a throwback Sunday.
Yeah. This is how like from Edmonton I am. So I've lived in Edmonton my entire life. I remember, I don't even know how long the Mosquers have been a thing, but they have been present for a very long time in my life, at least.
Since 2006.
2006. Boom. Okay. So I remember in 6th grade, I went to an Islamic school. So there was this like citywide thing that Mosquers was doing where they had like a call for people to submit their art from schools around the city, and then they would like pick the top 5 or the top 3 to come and share it at the Mosquers during the show. So we wrote these poems for class. And then like a month after it was like due for grades and marks, my teacher let me know that it was selected. So this was when the Mosquers was still at sub in U of A at Meyer Horowitz Theater. Yep. Yeah. And Meyer Horowitz now like does not feel like a big lecture theater. Like it feels small. But when I was 12, it felt huge. I was like, there are 40,000 people in here right now. But yeah, that was the first time I ever shared a poem.
In the 6th grade.
In the 6th grade.
Holy.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So not only incredibly talented, like from the time you were tiny, but also, like, were you nervous? Like, how did that...
Yeah, I mean, like, it was not very complex where it was like rhyming book with cook. And
But
still, I mean, like, do you remember what that poem was about?
I do. So it was like, okay, it was a very weird concept. So, it was basically this person who was like searching for God and went to all these different places and couldn't find God, and then realized that God was in their heart. So it was a little nerdy, but it's fine.
The deepest sixth grader I've ever heard of, though.
I'm pretty sure I ripped that off of a children's book. Like, I don't think I came up with that idea myself, but it's okay. It's okay. I adapted it.
Everything's a rip-off.
Yeah,
so
like, no original thought anymore.
Yeah, it was like a remake.
It's just a remake.
We won't explore that one.
It's too deep. It's like 12:30.
Too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
Too much. It's like a 2 a.m. thought.
Yeah, listen. But that's very impressive.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could have made like a coherent poem.
And to like perform it in front of a bunch of...
a ton of people. Yeah. Like, my rewards, like, it's not huge, but it's not small.
It just
like,
felt,
like
I just remember it felt like
400, 500,
endless.
600.
Like the most people that you probably ever performed to in 6th grade is like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was your class.
Like, yeah.
And like maybe at an assembly where you were like a tree in some play, but like that's different. You didn't write that.
Shout out to Mosquers for creating that space for young artists. Like, you fostered this.
Shout out to Mosquers.
Yes. And I guess we're bringing that full circle then, because you are performing at this year's Mosquers Festival for us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you're prepping? Is it some original pieces? Can we have a little sneak peeky of some ideas?
We can keep it mostly a surprise.
Okay. All right.
But I will say that it is really crazy to think about, like, at 12 years of age performing on that stage. I never could have imagined that, like, I would grow up to be this person who wrote... I didn't even know what spoken word was. So it is insane to think about that now, however many years later, like 10 years later, I'm going to be sharing it at the Mosquers. Yeah. And even the way the opportunity came about was insane. So I'm excited.
What's that story?
So let me tell you. So there's this the event happening with Islamic Relief earlier this year. And Alina, who's the festival director, was at the event. She's one of the organizers because she's amazing and just is always doing things. So actually, before I performed at that event, I was in a very weird space of like writer's block and taking a break from poetry and not wanting to write, and just really was put off by the idea of spoken word and just needed a break because it was overwhelming. And I ended up getting a call that there was this event happening with Yassine Bey, and my friend at the last minute could not perform, and he was like, hey, like, I'm gonna be out of town. Do you think you could be there for this? And I was like, what? Yassine Bey? Who? What? Yes, I will be there. I don't... Writer's block who?
Yeah.
So after months of like not wanting to perform, not wanting to share, I wrote a poem, and like it was a poem that I came back to actually. And I wrote it in like a week, memorized it, and then ended up performing. And
it was unreal. Like, I was there.
Oh,
it was, like,
hi.
incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you. We definitely messed up. The memorization was not all the way there. It was like exam season, but it's okay. Nobody has to know.
I did not tell. That was executed flawlessly the audience perspective.
Thank you. Now the world knows, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And Alina was there. She heard it, and she came up to me afterwards. She was so sweet, and she was like, hey, I'm the festival director for the Mosquers this year. Like, would you want to perform? I was like, yes, what? Mosquers? That's where it all started, and so can't wait.
Nice, that's awesome. That's very cool. I didn't realize we were bringing back like a veteran Mosquers, so like that's
I'm one of the
cool.
originals.
Yeah. Mosquers repping since the 6th grade.
Hey, gang.
So from starting out at the Mosquers, and then to just kind of launching into poetry, how did having that platform really help you? And do you see it being beneficial for, like other Muslims who want to get into the arts?
I think it's vital. I think that if you don't have space to share, and if you don't see people who look like you sharing, then like I don't know that you'll ever be able to. And if you do, it's going to be a really long and hard road. And even for me, like I told you guys, I started out binge watching things online about poetry and seeing spoken word and what that looked like. And even when I was younger, other people in our community, so for example, Ahmed, like we talked about earlier, back in the day, he used to do these events with breath and poetry. So I remember my mom would take me to these spoken word shows that he would do, and there would be like all these poets sharing, and I would like, even from a younger age, like that just, I don't know, something about that was just so, it felt like a good fit, and I just wanted to see myself up there, and I was so drawn to it. So yeah, having access to an arts community, having a platform from such a young age, and even when I started out again back in 2015, I never would have been able to do spoken word if it wasn't for community, if it wasn't for mentorship, if it wasn't for people giving me opportunities, even me doing the Islamic relief event as a result of somebody giving me an opportunity, and then now doing the Mosquers as a result of someone giving me an opportunities. Yeah, like without community, without platforms, I would not be here. I think for a lot of us, it's the same.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, the name of the podcast is the Halal Gap.
Mm-hmm.
So have you, like, sensed in the arts that you've encountered, like, that lack of representation, and has that affected you as a person trying to seek opportunities?
Definitely. Like, yes and no. I think that, especially like when I was younger, growing up, like we talked about, there was a complete lack of representation. Mainstream media, mainstream resources, like there are people who look like us, right? Mm-hmm. But then as I've gotten older, being able to find my little pockets of like stuff where I fit in has been really great. Like earlier this year, I got to go to the like NCCM, the National Council for Canadian Muslims. Mm-hmm. I think I got the acronym right, but they had this storytellers retreat, and it was like Muslim artists from around the country. So it was like, cool. Yeah, it was amazing. It was like writers, photographers, videographers, poets, everything. And just being in a room with all of these like artists from all these different disciplines that are all Muslim, they're all trying their best to tell stories about our community, and like we're just existing as Muslim artists who are doing this full time, was insane. Like it was such an important thing to be able to see, and it was a really important experience because it was like this thing that allowed me to have community and has now inspired me to really want to do my art as a full-time thing. So, and I think you don't even realize what a lack of representation there is until you're in spaces like that where you're just like, why is this not the norm? Like, why have I been missing out on this?
Mm-hmm. Definitely
all
agree.
This time?
Yeah,
right.
And like we talked about that earlier with learning about all these poets in school. You don't really like. It's like, oh yeah, cool poetry, whatever. But you don't notice how very like specific it is to just white,
male,
like descended, male descended from the British.
Yes.
Right. Like. It's very it's very prevalent
like diversity
in the arts,
like,
but the diversity
this is a
like
sonnet and this is not.
Exactly. It's like
cool.
Wow. But like the most diverse it gets is like, well, this guy was from Scotland. He was from, okay,
like,
cool.
Okay, and no, definitely, and like you don't, it's not even, you don't even realize until you break away from that. Like, why is that the norm? Because again, that's your world, that's your reality, so you're okay with it. And then when you realize what you're missing out on, you're just like, I've been robbed.
Yeah.
And
then I feel like then after that your heart would just be like, okay, give me another space like that. Like constantly create that and cultivate
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%.
So because like the mentorship and the support from others has been so important to you and like your career and your experience as a spoken word poet, are you like hoping to open that space up for others, and like do you have ideas for how to do that?
I don't know. I think like it's something that I'm very conscious of. Like, I want more than anything to be able to not just like tell a story, like have a microphone, but to pass that on for every other person coming up after me, and to actually create a space where they can share and where they can like be at the table with me. Like I don't ever want to be the first or the only one, right? But it's been, I think that there's a lot that I can do. There's a lot more that I can do in that space, but it's something that I'm cognizant of and something that I'm working towards for sure, because it's important.
Awesome. It's very cool.
I mean, like, I'm just thinking, like, we're talking about like communities and stuff, and we're talking about building communities. And I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but like, you probably have noticed this because you grew up in Edmonton, you're born here. But there's this kind of, for people who are in Edmonton, there's almost like this divide, right, between the different communities, and
for sure,
and even just knowing about one another and what they're doing. You talked about like the hub where all the Somalis grew up, right? Yeah, and then but like other people, they don't know these things, right? Yeah. And it's almost like, how do we get them into the room together, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you see poetry or even the arts as an opportunity to do that?
For sure. I think that through poetry and through being an artist, I've had access to so many different communities and people that I never would have gone outside of my like small circle or like my inner circle's contacts to actually see and meet these people. So I think that there is a gap. The Halal Gap extends to within our community, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't even know where we can start to bridge that, but I do think that art is one place where people come together because it's like a common understanding. But yeah.
Any upcoming projects?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, okay, so something I've been saying that I want to do for so long, but I'm just going to continue to speak into existence because then everyone that I tell is going to hold me accountable.
If you say it, it'll happen.
That's how that works, right? Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like it's fine. But so I really want to make a spoken word album. Right? Yes. Can't wait. Maybe you guys can work together. We'll see. But my friend Nisha and I, we were on the team together. Like I said, like all the four of us that had written together, all of our words just like fit really well together. And so like even after 2016, after competing, me and Nisha still from time to time write together. And so yeah, we just want to put out a spoken word album, the two of us. And inshallah, you can expect that 2021. Set that deadline.
So like how many like tracks would you have on like a spoken word album?
I think we want 12.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be 4 individual and the rest is going to be group pieces. We have 3 out of 12.
Oh.
So
Hey, on your way.
progress.
Yeah.
Nothing's recorded, but that's fine.
25%.
Right? Hey, yes. Quarter the way there.
Yeah.
Lots of concepts, but it's just a matter of coming full circle again and completing them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Cool. And are you like setting aside time in the future months or year to do that?
Honestly, I'm almost done school, and I know it's horrible to put things off until school's done, but I'm almost done school, so I'm thinking like next summer, inshallah, will be a good time to start recording, and then between now and then, just a matter of writing, which is honestly, it's not the easy part, but it's like
the natural part,
right?
Yeah.
That is the word. Yes, thank you, because that can just happen in my room on my laptop, so it's chill. Yeah.
Nice. That's very cool. Do you have like a name? For
Absolutely
it?
not.
No,
We have not gotten that far.
I was gonna say, like, do you have like a favorite place to hang in Edmonton or like?
Oh, just in general?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, good question. Okay, so aside, I feel like I spent a lot of my time not liking Edmonton and just feeling like I know it's
No, I
terrible,
think we're all good.
but right,
Yeah,
we're all
I
same
think
age.
that's- yeah.
Is everybody? I was like counting down to when I was like, I'm gonna grow up, I'm gonna like move to this apartment in New York, my friends, fine, we're gonna get out. And then as I've gotten older and like had access to community, I'm just like, I'm not gonna say I've grown to love Edmonton. I've grown to love the people though, for sure. Yeah. So it's like calmed a lot of the angst and hatred.
All right.
But I think one of my favorite places in Edmonton is definitely the Nook, because that's where Breath and Poetry has their poetry night. So it's just like a lot of really wonderful memories. Like that was one of the first places that we got to share our group pieces. I also love the green room. That's where I did my book launch, like their original space, but I also love the new space. So yeah, it's just like these places where people who I love are present that I have grown to love. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderful to talk to you. You can find Timiro's book, as she mentioned, at the Glass Buffalo Bookshop website.
Yes.
Yep. And she will be performing at this year's Mosquers Film Festival, which will be on September 21st at the Windspear here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Thank you so much for joining us as we aim to close the gap.